Oh, am I live? Is it working? I don't know. I need to figure out a better way of doing this. Oh, I got a red light. I think I'm live. Alright, cool. Welcome everybody back to Stonks Music. Today we're having a look through track 1 off my new EP, Subsonic Propulsion Machine. This track's called the Bloop. It's got a bunch of weird, fun, stompy bass stuff going. I'll just play the drop for you guys, anybody that's not heard it. Yes, we like it. So this is 100 BPM, kind of glitch hop, stompy banger. It's kind of what I was going for here. Main thing with this EP, I kind of had a concept in mind of the whole thing being underwater, all about finding the bloop, which is a unknown sound that happened deep in the ocean. I think if scientists eventually found out it was just a volcano or something boring like that. But anyway, let's pretend it was a massive monster, and that's what we've got to go and find on our journey. So I'll start off down here. I think I used free sample for these things. Just some nice bubbly underwater sounds. They're not pulled in time or anything. It's just chucked in as a nice kind of texture. EQ'd out some of the lows. Just adds a bit of texture to what would otherwise be a bit of a boring intro. Yeah, there's tons of weird effects on this one. Let's start with our pads here and have a look what's going on in this intro bit. So we've got a couple of bits going on here. This massive is our main chords. This instrument rack. So this guy here, this auto filter, which is a reject filter, looks like it's mad and what the hell are you doing? This is actually the exact opposite of a filter that's going on down here in this nightmare of a channel. I bounced it down and this time actually managed to preserve it for you guys. So this is what I've called the bloop. This myriad of automation going on here. Boom. I'll open all of this up. Right, so this filter here, this is the guy that gives us all of our sound. So let me turn this off and listen to what this is. I mean, even technically that's not true because I've got this on beat mode. So if I turn the warp off, that is one of my mud pies. That's something I've just recorded, broken, and brought back in. Set it to beats mode. I do this all the time. And then with all of our effects mainly being this guy here, it's given us this crazy so see that auto filter, that is doing, I should turn this channel back off, the opposite of this one. And that's just because what we've got going on here is feedback. This whole bloop sound is just a feedback loop. So in order to not have crazy frequencies that just hurt your ears, I just duplicated this and flipped it so that it's up, and then this one goes down. Pretty simple little things like that add up at the end of a track to make something listenable or not. So I bounced that track down just to make it a little less CPU intensive. So a bit of choice, surgical EQing here just to get rid of some of the frequencies I thought were popping out a bit too much. Not a significant difference to the sound, but the overall mix gives us a lot more control and headroom by the end of it. What else have we got here? This is from the original sound up here. I don't know why it's not in the drums. I decided to keep it in the pads. Whatever reason, I don't know. We've got a cool little bit here as well. That's our little pitch dive. And that's just emulating a tape delay, tape stop, you know, stopping the record or something. I just bounced this down to audio. We've chatted about this a bunch of times before, but you see here, resampling mode, solo, record it in, and then come in, transpose, modulation, pitch it down. Pretty simple, but this kind of movement all over the place really starts giving your track a bit of life. So that's the pads for the intro, and pretty much for the whole song. Later on we get that big epic cinematic kind of thing, so we got our horns and strings, good old Colossus again for that. Octaves here just to really bring it out. We got a big old choir doing some big chords behind that. You can see here the low pass filter just slowly going up. Cut all the frequencies out before the drop. It's always a good one. Here's our cinematic drums. Flams are so important. And I'm just blessed with Colossus has some of the best samples out of anything that I've used. I had this plug-in like 15 years or something. You can see .64. I've had to J-bridge it because it's not even it's a 32-bit plug-in, but I love it. I rely on it so much for anything, any strings, any of these kind of orchestral sounds. It smashes it out the park every time. Okay, that's the pads. We'll have a quick look at the SFX. So there's not much going on here, but there's a few cool weird things that I tend to do. Big reverbs and delays and stuff. So let's start with this guy. Just kind of eats the mix up when that bit comes. Helps that slow down, that kind of tape slow down. Here we got something from Sonic 3. I don't even know what it is. Well, I can't remember what it is. That noise. Obviously, I felt that was the most important thing that really needed to emphasize that drop was that. Got another impact here. And that's just a hit with a ton of reverb on it. Pitched hit, so that it's at the right pitch. Here's some donks. And that looks like something else I've just cut up from a bigger sample. No, I don't know if that is missing or if I got rid of it. It doesn't sound like it's missing, but it says it is. And then what else we got over here? I mean, that's about it for our effects. So the majority of this track is in this bass folder, as it always is for me. These white channels are ones that, when I was bouncing the stems for remixes, I ended up including these guys in the pads, but for the sake of my mix, I didn't dare move them from where they are. I've got certain routing going on that it's just easier. By the time you get to the end of a track, it gets a bit scary if you start moving channels around and grouping things differently. So instead, I just marked them white so I know there's something different about them. So let's have a quick look at the bass. I've got two things going on here. All of this audio, it's a bit of a mess. And then my MIDI. So let's have a quick look at, I suppose we'll have a look at the sub bass, and then that gives you an idea of what the riff is and what's actually going on. So open this guy up. Let me fold there and follow the bass line. So you can hear riff 1 and then riff 2. It's kind of a little variation on riff 1. This is the entire of the song, these MIDI notes. That's all there is to it. All of the craziness comes from, I don't know the term, I don't know what I should call this. I call it preset smashing or preset resampling. What I did, probably this deactivated guy, I imagine. Nope. Who would it have been? Maybe Elephant Bass? I remember making that one. So those two are turned off, which leads me to believe that these were the two that I originally resampled. So, like I've said a million times before, I would have soloed them, right-clicked a audio track, and set that audio track to resample mode, and then played it in. Let me grab one of these guys here, and I'll take it all the way to the end. It's going to take me ages to do like that. There we go, Control C. Dump you over here. So what I did after that, once I had everything bounced down to audio, is I did the same thing, that same resampling technique, and I placed a, grab a new track for this. So there's our riff. Duplicate, 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 duplicate. Add a new channel. Set this one to resampling. This one soloed. This one armed. And then grab your favorite kind of group effect thing. This is one thing that Absinthe is great for. Absinthe effects. Chuck this on. Absinthe effects, just trawl through the presets and see what you get. So, quiet please. We set it to record. Right, you get the idea. That sounded like a right fucking mess. But if we cut up each of these guys, every time we change the effect, and then each one on a new track. I'm just going to delete all of these because I'll show you my actual ones I've done. And then from here we can pick, let's go quarter notes, XU, get rid of that one, get rid of those two, get rid of that one. And when I did this for the track, I actually picked it out. I'm just doing it randomly here to demonstrate the point. But what we end up with is, make sure to take Absinthe off of the original. You get the idea? And it can be any effect you want to use. You can just recycle through a bunch of different distortions if you want. You can, if there's a particular sound you're after, you can try and get it. But the whole thing I like to do is just have fun. Just have fun. So let's have a little listen to all of the different tracks we've got going. You see here, sometimes there's two playing at the same time. Sometimes there's only one. It's just picking out what sounded good to me at the time. So we got. high pass is probably coming from there. So let me go to the drop. Just look at that. So this first one, we've also got this guy. So together. This next bit is this guy. With this one. And this one. So these are all very subtle differences. That one's more cut up to give that stutter. And next, back to the top, back to the one that we're used to hearing. So then we've got some cool little jumps here. This makes it sound real glitchy because there's loads of different stuff happening basically. Then this little guy. Then this one. No, this one. And then this guy. So all together. This guy and this one. And this one. And this one. We have. And if you tried to write something like that, you'd probably be there for hours trying to figure out what you're doing. Whereas by having everything kind of resampled, already reprocessed, just a case of what I've done here to deactivate the clips, you just press 0. And I was just cutting them up and going, that one, no, maybe that one, no. Just listening to it until I got a groove that I liked. And that is persistent through the entirety of this track. I know it looks like it took me a long time because it did. So once I was done with cutting up all that audio and had the riff kind of sounding how I liked, to beef it up a bit more, I felt like it needed a few extra frequencies. So this guy's called Tippy. If any of you have heard of an artist called Tipper, he's got some kind of cool trip hop stuff, but he does a lot of this kind of vocal talky stuff. I wanted to get some of that in there, so I got this guy. It's 2 instances of massive, pitched 12 apart. Let's see what it is. Daft Talk, so that's like a Daft Punk talky kind of thing. I've got an LFO here that I've set up, max for live. Yeah. And here you can see a lot of weird little bits of pitch automation. This is another habit of mine. I mean, I think music's all about changes over time. And if this particular track didn't have all these pitch bends in it and all these other kind of glitchy cut-up audio, I think it'd be a pretty boring track, to be honest. This is what gives it all its flavour. So what else is here that's not turned off? There's another tippy for the second section. I don't know why it's different. So it's just reinforcing a few of the other notes. It's not doing the second section. So let's hear those guys together. And then these two down here. What have we got going on? Ah, Vesper's Jazz Hands, yes. I remember making this particular synth following a tutorial from Bass Gorilla. I don't know if he's still around. It was a few years ago. It's just an analog with a bunch of processing that I've done on it. Just listen. this guy. And I've just duplicated it. One of them set up 7 semitones, so it just gives it this kind of off-kiltery kind of feel. It's a harmonizer. So up 7 semitones would be the same as up a fifth. So it's like it's playing power chords, if any of you are guitarists and have any idea what I'm talking about. If not, it's just a cheap way of doing fifths if you go up 7 semitones. And then I separated this note. These notes used to be a part of that synth. So this is duplicated, and I separated it, looks like, for volume and maybe a couple of other effects that I've chucked on at the end. So this is what the jazz hands is all about. It automates the let me open it up, the vibrato amount to just get this kind of whoops, boom. Just jazz hands every time. So if you listen to that in the track, no, I can't. Right. So our second riff sounds like it's a big change and lots going on. All I did for this is spent a long time on this first 8 bars, like a long time, to get it real sounding good. Duplicated the entire thing to the next 8 bars, and instead of individually cutting up each of these guys, I kept it grouped, and I just went through with the entire track selected from top to bottom and just kind of went, yeah, duplicate that one and move stuff around and cut it up. So we get what's this guy here? And again, this is just another one of the resamples. Any of this audio is just resampled from the original riff. Just doing this plug-in resampling, or plug-in smashing, or whatever you want to call it. Trying to think what else is that interesting in this song, because apart from that bass is the main thing that holds it all together. We do have pretty standard drums and sidechain going on. Is there anything in the intro? No. So let's look here at the bits that I know are strange. We have this echo kick. I think I bounced it down. Yeah, I did. This is just one of our kick drums, and it's with an echo on it, and I think I pitch shifted the echo or something. Let's have a listen. And that really helps just build up some intensity at the in the intro. Super simple drum beat. It's not about the drums. So you can see here we got our snare, comprised of 2 snares by the looks of things. We got and then together. And this vapor trail. It's kind of a messy, sounds more organic, like a, you know, kind of the rattle you get off a snare. But I've used that, reversed it, and it now it sucks you into the snare drum. So we got the same way, kind of an open hi-hat, boom, scat, boom, scat. It just helps kind of. There's a lot of sidechain use in this track. It's kind of a big boom, so that kind of sucking from the snare drum really helps give that that kind of movement. I don't know, adds a bit of anticipation and a little bit. Tops, super easy in this track. I kind of just went for a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the hi-hats with a few little kind of alterations just in case a drummer ever listens to it and starts ridiculing me for my super basic rubbish drums. So we got some cymbals down here. And another cymbal down here. Another big crash on the one. I can hear there's a bit of that sucking happening on these drums. We do have the kick and the snare side chained to the hats. So if we've ever got a kick and a hat happening at the same time here, or a snare and a hat happening at the same time here, it's ducking everything. So let's have another quick look at that. With the full drums playing, you can't really tell. It's just adding a bit more clarity. And that's pretty much the drums for this entire track. Little bit here where we go to the no drums section. Let me group all of these guys. Turn that off, show you what we have. It's a super boring little loop. Drum pumper. I'll do these one by one for you guys. Right. Drum pumper just gives it a bunch more transients because I turned the transients right up. Bit of crunch, bit of drive. Manipulator. This is I actually heard about this from Beardy Man, but it's made by the Infected Mushroom guys, so I should have heard of it much sooner. It's a pitch shifting weird plugin. This is a great plugin actually for doing the preset resampling. It just has crazy sounds, so I'm not actually doing anything too crazy with it, but this sequencer, you can hear it. Adding a bit more stereo width, and it's just turned that boring sample Almost the same as I'm doing in the intro with that auto filter. It's just moving it around the frequencies to give you a bit more movement and sound. Next, Oxford Inflator. You could use OTT, there's a bunch of things. Again, it's just one of those old plugins I've always used. Auto filter, to get rid of those super highs, I obviously picked, for some reason, 3.32 for the frequency that I wanted. And you can't see it. Usually if I do it with Max for Live, you'll physically be able to see it moving. But I have the LFO amount here set to 16. So that is basically doing that on 16th notes. You can hear with and without. And that kind of gives it a little more staccato feel because it's just getting rid of all those frequencies at the high end. Next, I do a big low cut because we don't need those frequencies. Followed by a saturator for some distortion. Another auto filter. This EQ. And this is something that is quite tricky when you're first starting out. You tend to solo things a lot and listen to them, and now you'd go, I've ruined that sound. There's all those frequencies that you've got rid of. In this bit of the mix, it goes from being our big heavy drop bit to our breakdown section, so we don't want all those frequencies. You want get rid of some of those highs, then when it explodes again into our drop, it's opening up. OTT, it's just another standard one. I've got it in 50%. This is just going to be the OTT preset, 50%, so it's doing it parallel. Small adjustments on my levels, turning the lows down because we don't need them, and highs and mids. So that's just kind of compressing it and flattening out those sounds a bit more. Then a utility, I'm just using it for gain reduction. A lot of the time I'll put them on the end to mono the bass or something. I don't know why I didn't do it up here. I decided to do it in utility. Different ways of doing things. So let's just listen to this section unsoloed. So it's really quiet and probably could be turned up a bit in the mix, but it's not one of the most focal parts. I think it kind of helps add some attack to this bass. And then we have this scratchy guy here. And that has a bunch of these chack, 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 chack noises in. So this just kind of helps sit with that. Drop back into our big boy bit. Big boy bit, you know, our drop. And last but not least, we've got this bit over here, we start adding a few more layers. We've got those kind of video game sounds that come in. Let me find what we got here. Tippy. Must be one of these guys. So one of the differences here is just the sound. You can see it's got all those same kind of weird pitch bends going on. And at the end there, got this echo and this reverb, which start automating up. Start dry wet low. This is another transitions. It's one of the things that can really make or break a track. So if we didn't have those two as it goes into the next section, we'll just listen to it together. You can hear it just kind of overlapping into that next section. Let me turn these off. Still works, it's just not, it doesn't flow as well in my opinion. So automating dry wets and echoes, just adding that bit. So then here we have group all this stuff, turn it off. Just that super simple basic sound that we used earlier. I'll turn these all on one by one again. That's going to bugger up because of automation, but oh well. Oh, I've got some stuff turned on, some stuff not. Delete. 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 I'm going to press that. You should come back on. Right. Let's do this one again. So the first, we have this. And these are a bunch of DJ effects I downloaded ages ago, apparently from tarakith.com. And they're just kind of like one-shot DJ effects you can use when you're making tracks, or if you're doing a set or something, and I use them quite often. They're just really nice in the middle. Just gives it some stereo width. After that, modulator, phaser, chorus. Then I've put an LFO on, and that is modulating the chorus depth. Clock check. This guy is weird. You see the right channel it's done nothing to, and the left channel it has a ping pong delay. So it's again just more stereo messing. Shaper. And now you can hear that the pitch is being messed up and everything. Auto filter just slowly builds up till the end. Twist that. Echo. OTT. So now we have that other filter going from bottom to top. This one goes from top to bottom. And we can see it. So it's slowly giving you more low frequencies until there, and then it's taking all the low frequencies away up until there. And utility here, we are automating the actual gain. So it slowly gets louder. Up until here. And then the reason I've automated this on the utility is because of all of these extra effects that are going on. If I didn't do that, it would just be an awful noise spilling over. And the other option would be our old faithful resampling, audio track, resample mode, and then once you've recorded it in, you can just delete everything that comes after. This time I chose to keep it MIDI and use the utility. At the end of that, whenever you see an EQ like this is surgical EQ. It just means there was a frequency that I didn't like or was messing with the mix quite a bit. So kind of makes sense. 6 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz was we're quite prone to that frequency. We can hear that one pops out a lot more. I don't know, I think that's pretty much the whole track. A B C D. What happens at the end here? We've got a couple of more video gamey noises that pop up. I don't know where they are though. It's not the tippers. It must be this guy. So I've used a preset here on Massive, which is Wario lead. All it's actually doing though, if you wanted to do this yourself, you can hear it's going up and down an octave really quickly. So if you were to do that on each of these notes, it would do the same thing. And that adds this really kind of video gamey feel towards the end of it. It's all kind of built up to this point. Water sample here at the end. And that goes on for ages. What I actually did is I imported this track into track 2, cut that end off so that when they go from one to another, that underwater sound kind of prevails through the 2 tracks. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for this track. It's a resampled bass riff. That's pretty much all it is. Nice 4 to the floor drums. My routing is the same for all of these tracks. The more of this you watch, the more you'll see what I'm doing. I've got my drums, which has kick snare in one bit, and then the hats is a group within the drums. The hats have their own side chains, and then I have everything else: sans, subs. So everything else is because everything else gets sidechained too. Inside everything else we have our bass, pads, and SFX. So each of them have a bit of their own processing. The SFX doesn't. Fab filter, limiter, probably got that on most of the track channels. OTT is everywhere. And then the everything sidechain, like I say, just so everything has its sidechain. We have a couple of return tracks down here. They are for the drums mainly, and then Crush 'em is bass, and a couple of other choice things get sent to Crush 'em. And this is just parallel, just a bit of compression. It's not actually parallel because parallel would have it 50, but it is parallel because it's sent on a return track. And here we're EQing out, so it's only these frequencies that are coming through the distorted channel. Come back here somewhere. So that is being added on top of our other bass. Just gives it a bit more high-end sparkle. It's just distortion on the high frequencies. Drum bus, we've got a bit of weird processing here that I actually got from Rezo. If any of you guys have heard of him. And it's like a 3-stage drum processing. So we've got reverb, and then our drum bus, which is New York compression, where we're scooping the mids, slamming it in a compressor. Let me solo the drums. And then this gets sent to C, which is another EQ. Don't know why that picked that frequency. More compression, Camel Crusher just for super distortion. And a great thing about using return tracks is that you're preserving your original audio whilst adding these extra bits to it. Master channel, what have we got on here? Another one of these DJ effects, and I used it somewhere in the track at the end here. It's probably doing nothing really. Auto filter. It's just getting rid of all of the frequencies below 30 Hertz on this particular track. Utility bass mono. I do this on my master track a lot because with dance music you do want to make sure that if anyone's got a sub or big speakers, that your low frequencies, the lower the frequency, the bigger the wave that frequency makes. And if you've got a big wave split across panned hard left and hard right, you get phasing issues and it just sounds rubbish or sounds really weak. So bass mono just makes sure that everything for this entire track under 200 Hertz is slap bang in the middle. When I'm mastering, I try and think of an inverted triangle. That's my stereo wave. So the tip of the triangle at the bottom is mono, and then the higher frequencies you spread it higher and higher and higher until your top frequencies at 20 kilohertz can be, massive choruses or whatever on them, panning them hard left, hard right. We've got a bit of mid-side EQ. So for the middle, which is again we're talking about in the middle of a mono signal as opposed to far left and far right. So we start rolling off the high end on the mid channel, and on the sides we're boosting, or not that much, but not rolling off, so that at the top of the mix it's spread wider than the bottom of the mix. here I obviously had a big build up of mid frequencies. Let's have a little listen. I mean, it kind of sounds like my entire mix is in a box when this EQ's off. There's just, pardon me, far too much of those frequencies there. We get span out. That's another one I'm used all the time. So you can see the mids here just creeping up a bit too high. Let me hold it again. So I usually aim for a fish with my masters. So we go here, up, down to the tail, and then up and down again. So with this on, it gets us a bit closer to that fish. Goes up, down to the tail, and then flicks up again and down. Dubstep punchy, it's just Fab Filter. Great presets. I mean, this, it's just slamming it really, but that's what you want. You want a good slam. Quick attack, long release. It's aggressive AF, but that's what this kind of music asks for, so that's what we did. And a utility at the end, and we are just kind of adding to the movement of the track. So it starts off quieter, builds up to the drop. That little build up section, it drops down just by like 0.4 dB. Same here for the breakdown, it drops from 1.2 to 0.8, so 0.4 dB. Gradually rises up again to the main drop and then stays at that volume for the end. Span doesn't do anything, that's just my spectrum analyzer. Correlation meter. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this track. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoy. I do have the stems and everything for this ready. I'm just trying to figure out somewhere to upload them. So you guys can actually have a look at the project yourself, do some remixing, do whatever you want. Hopefully next time I will have the upgrade of Ableton so I can work on Keenboy's track that he sent me. I'll let you guys know. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch up with you next time. Ciao.